Welcome to episode 174 of Cocktails in the War Room. I am your host, Mistress Carrie. Welcome to my war room, and thanks for hanging out with me. Each and every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern, we gather here in my war room for a cocktail to decompress, talk about the week, and we've been doing it now for 174 episodes. It all started almost a year ago. Literally, our anniversary is coming up, guys. It started March 14th of 2020, was the first time that I invited you into the war room for a cocktail. And now all this time later, 174 episodes in, we did 80 nights in a row. And then once we announced the Mistress Carrie podcast and episode number 1 launched in June of 2020, well, the war room turned into a weekly thing, and someone wants to say hi. Say hi, Wednesday. For anybody that's new to the war room, please let us know that it's your first time. Chime in on the comments. Let us know where you're watching from, and also let us know that it's your first episode. And if you're new, this is my co-host. Sit down. This is Wednesday. You can find her at Wednesday the Goth Pug on Instagram. And she's got almost 1,000 followers on Instagram now. She's getting there, right? Are you famous? And her birthday is coming up in April. It's coming up fast, April 11th. Get down, down. Hey, down. Good girl. You want to show off your manicure that mommy gave you today? Did you have a manicure today? Back up. Sit down. Good girl. For anybody that's ever had a pug before, you know that they really hate getting their nails done. And Wednesday got her nails done today. We sat down in the sun, didn't we? You didn't even cry. Want to say what's up to Andrew, Christine joining us in the war room. Shannon and Donna are here. Michelle, Alexis, Ryan, Tom is here. Lisa, Mickey, Ed, Eric joining us here in the war room. Michael is here. What's up, Brito? Tom is here. Yes, the pug cures all. There she is. Good girl, Wednesday. See, look up here. Look up here and say hi. Your chin is getting very white. You're not even old. I'll give you a little belly rub. Belly. Let's see who else is joining us tonight. Bish is here. Trisha, what's going on? Donald, yo, what's going on with you? Elsa, Kim, Carol, and let's see, Denise. What's going on, Denise? And Jay is joining us as well. Yeah, so welcome to the war room. It's been quite a week. I have a lot of stuff to talk to you guys about. I have been very busy since the war room last week. And I can't wait to tell you who's on the podcast this week, too. There's a lot going on. It's very busy. There you go, Wednesday. I have to bribe her to come in here and pose for you guys. So that's all the cookies that she has. Now she's going to start investigating what came in the mail because she's not happy that the cookies are gone. The first thing I want to do is wish all of the ladies a happy International Women's Day, which I think is kind of hilarious that we make up 3.5 billion people on the planet and we get a whole day dedicated to our contributions to the world. So happy International Women's Day, ladies. It has been nice all day seeing all the tributes to women and all of the accomplishments, and to see what would normally be male-dominated organizations and branches of the military, things like that, all singing the praises of the contributions of women today. So in all seriousness, congratulations, International Women, for your day. On a somber note, here in Massachusetts, I'm not sure where you're watching from, but Massachusetts lost a 34-year-old female state trooper to a traffic accident on 93. She was pulling over in her cruiser to help a motorist that had broken down. She was hit by a truck, and today is her wake. And the fact that it was International Women's Day obviously was all over the internet today. And then to see the live footage of 6 female Massachusetts state troopers serving as pallbearers in front of thousands of law enforcement officers that traveled from around the country to pay tribute to a female trooper here in Massachusetts. It was a pretty awe-inspiring thing. The protests and the kind of issues when women started getting involved in what were traditionally male fields like law enforcement, military, firefighting, there were a lot of people that were against it, saying that they weren't going to contribute, that they weren't going to be the same as the male officers. And to see thousands of male officers paying tribute to a fellow officer who just happened to be female, and also for there to be so many women on the job that the pallbearers were all female as well, was pretty emotional for me today. And there was a lot of footage of it. The funeral happening tomorrow, but the wake happened today. And what they did was they had law enforcement officers meet off site, and they were bussed in so that they could go in a line of honor and pay respects during the wake. And to see like a mile-long line of buses carrying police officers, sheriff's deputies, troopers, it was sad, but at the same time, especially because of all of the footage for International Women's Day, it just goes to show that women are contributing in these fields, that women are viewed as equals. And so to all of the male officers and troopers and deputies that went to pay tribute to Trooper Bucci today, it's noticed by not only your fellow officers that happen to be female, but it's noticed by your communities that you protect. It's noticed by your daughters and your wives that you consider these female officers simply officers. And it's something that comes up on the podcast all the time, that there are so many women in music, specifically in rock and roll, that we've been talking a lot about lately, that it's starting to just not be a novelty anymore, that you just are a guitar player, not a female guitar player. It means a lot. Representation means a lot for women, and to not be the exception to the rule, but to just be there working alongside your male counterparts is pretty important. And it's happening a lot more. But still, when something like today and the footage of Trooper Bucci's services were on today, I had a real visceral emotional reaction when I saw 6 female troopers serve as her pallbearers. And it was incredibly powerful and respectful. And I thought it was beautiful in a weird way, and I don't mean it that way, but you guys know what I mean, that it meant a lot that those women were there for their female trooper to carry her in. And I'm starting to get a little misty just thinking about it, but it's always sad. I believe Massachusetts has lost 22 troopers in the line of duty, and it's never easy, male or female, old or young. And the outpouring of love and support by the community is also a pretty amazing thing as well. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that we all paid tribute to Trooper Bucci today. Yes, I'm still drinking coffee. It's been a very long week. I'll explain everything coming up on the show tonight. But to all of the law enforcement officers that are out there late night in terrible weather, in traffic, putting themselves in harm's way. It's not an easy job. It's not always perfect, but it's never easy to lose someone that has dedicated their life to protecting their community. So raise a glass to Trooper Bucci, please. So last Tuesday night, we were here in the War Room, and I was telling you that last week my husband was coming home from his deployment, for anybody that's new, and he's been gone 18 months, and last Wednesday, I was able to go and pick him up at the airport. And so he arrived last Wednesday to a cold beer and a hot pizza at the airport that was waiting for him. Incredibly jet lagged, tired, happy to be back in the U.S. There's a lot going on in the news. It's really hard to turn the news on and see happy things. And it was just really nice to have him home. The last year and a half have been long for everyone with COVID and the economy and just everything going on. And that just added a complication for me and the family to have him be away that whole time. Being able to go overseas and meet up with him and have a little time with him was amazing, but knowing that he's back in the States is pretty awesome. I will tell you that he is not here in the war room, that this morning I had to say goodbye to him again. So he didn't even make it a whole week. He is already on his way to report for duty tomorrow at his new job and to start to get settled and unpack his things and, get a car and put a life together, because he doesn't serve in New England. We don't have active duty Marine Corps here in New England. So he is gone again. And so I had him for about 6 days. 6 days to welcome him home, adjust to the time change, see friends and family. We did get to go and see Slash together last night at the House of Blues, which if you were there, the show was great. Last week's podcast guest, Mariah Formica, the lead singer and guitar player from the band Plush, they opened up the show last night at the House of Blues. I thought they were great. They did a fantastic cover of Barracuda, which Mariah just nailed. And hello, Wednesday. I was just telling him, do you want me to turn your camera back on? Okay. I was just telling him about Slash. And the show was amazing. Obviously, it ran late, so by the time I got home, was on the air today. Lots going on. Got my shirt. I got a new addition to the t-shirt and concert shirt collection. So thank you to the ladies from Plush for hooking me up with my new t-shirt, which is awesome. It was so funny because my husband listens to the podcast, which it's really funny because before the Mistress Carrie podcast even launched, he had never listened to a podcast before. And as I've told you guys many times, he's not really a rock music fan, but he listens to the episodes every week. And so he's learning some things. And so he kind of snuck away last night to go get beer and stuff and came back. And he had bought a t-shirt from the band, which is something that I usually do because if I get my tickets for free, I want to be able to support the band somehow. And so one of the ways that artists make money is through merchandise and merchandise sales at the shows and off of their websites and stuff. And so he came back and he bought a Plush shirt. And I was like, yes. So I thought Plush really won the crowd over. It was a sold out crowd at the House of Blues last night, and pretty much the entire crowd was there when Plush went on stage. And by the end of their set, they had really won the crowd over, which, especially talking about, today being International Women's Day, this is a crowd of Slash fans that were cheering on a band of 4 young women under the age of 21 that were up there playing rock and roll. And it was badass. If you were at the show last night, I can't tell you everything, but I will tell you this. You would have noticed at the House of Blues that there were a lot of cameras there recording Slash's set last night. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to do something with that footage, but those cameras aren't there all the time. And even Miles Kennedy made mention last night that the show they play in Boston, every tour is the loudest and craziest show of the entire tour. And they documented it last night. And I promised I wouldn't talk too much about it, but I will tell you as soon as I am allowed. But yeah, so if you were at the show last night, you might be able to watch the show again. And if you missed it, well, maybe you didn't miss it. So that's all I'm going to tell you. Let's see. So we also, while my husband was here, had a chance to have friends and family over to the house to kind of, be able to welcome him home. There was a lot of food that was eaten at the house. There was a lot of booze at the house. And when you have one of those gatherings where it's like the crossing of the streams, that's what I call it, when there's groups of people that don't know each other that end up meeting at a gathering of yours. And then those people who never would have met each other if it weren't for you then become friends without you. It's always strange, right? So there's family there. There's some of my friends, some work friends, military friends, some of his friends, some of he and I's friends. And then all of a sudden it just kind of morphed into this whole thing where my military friends and his military friends were becoming friends. And it was just a really good time. And it was nice to be able to do something quote unquote normal and just have people at the house and be able to spend some time together. And it was pretty awesome. So, and yes, he did tackle a few things on the honey-do list, which was really nice too, to have him home. So I am hoping to have him home again very shortly, but now that he's back in the States and getting settled, that also means that I'm going to be doing a little bit more traveling to be able to go and visit him as well. So racking up the frequent flyer miles, most likely flying, maybe driving when I need to. But with the price of gas, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But at least we're in the same time zone. So that helps. So Bish wants to know, are they doing a live album of it? Well, there were cameras there. So they're doing a lot with it, I would think, because there were a lot of big cameras that were recording everything last night. So let's see. Yes, he wants it. Melissa, you're right. He wants to come up for Jelly Roll at the Palladium on the 1st of April. So there is hopefully a chance that he's going to be up here for that. And as the weather gets warmer, we've got a lot of catching up to do. So thank you guys for all of the love and support. It was really sweet to see all of the messages when I was able to post up on social and stuff that he had landed and that he was home. It means a lot. And he saw all the messages. And I can't, Mark. I can't tell you. I promised I wouldn't. So when they're ready to announce things, I told them to let me know and I'll tell you everything. So let's see. Get him up here for the big gig. That is one of the plans. Hopefully, Michael, I'm hoping he can make it up here. So we'll see what happens. It gets crazy, right? You think things are going to calm down when he comes home, and it actually just got crazier. So, but there is just, with everything going on in the news right now with Russia and Ukraine and China and Belarus and just everything that's going on, just having them in the same time zone and on American soil right now makes me happy, even if it doesn't last. But at least right now, you get nothing, says Melissa. Exactly. Are you going to be at the big gig? Jonah, absolutely. I'm going to be at the big gig, which is coming up April 30th. It is still the celebration of AAF's 50 years. And we'll talk about the big gig coming up a little bit later on in the show. War Room Road Trip, says Jonathan. A bunch of tours got announced this week. There's a lot going on. So the first thing I want to do is just recap last week's podcast. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I almost ruined everything. Son of a bitch. Last week's episode was not Jelly Roll. It's not running this week's show, which is why during the intro it said episode 173 and not episode 174, because I just realized that it's not running this week's show. Ugh. There we go. All right, so let's recap last week's podcast episode 91. Mariah Formica, who is right here, is the lead singer and guitar player for Plush, who played last night at the House of Blues. I thought it was really cute that when I posted the interview up on the Mistress Carrie Facebook page, her mom, Donna, commented on it and thanked me for having Mariah on. You can tell that not only in the interview with Mariah, what a close-knit family this is. And Mariah talked about it in the episode about how supportive her parents are of her chasing her dream and putting this band together, getting the record deal, recording the album, and going out on the road. They're super proud. And I was texting with her dad last night, who's part of the management team, thanking them for hooking me up with tickets and thanking them for the t-shirt and everything. And he was like, thank you so much for having her on. We all love the episode. And so it was really sweet that her mom commented on the Facebook post. And then everybody else started commenting like, Mariah's mom is here and stuff. So it was very cool. So if you haven't heard episode 91 yet, I thought it was really interesting that somebody so young was influenced by the music that she was. And when I asked her the question about like, who was the artist that really drove you to decide, hey, I want to be in a band, she said Aerosmith, which is pretty special considering that she's not 21 yet. And that they were just such an influential band in her life. And she went on to talk about it, about watching Joe Perry play and wanting to play like him and spending so much time trying to learn his parts and not being willing to leave her room until she got the riffs and the licks down that Joe Perry has on the records. And she has got such an amazing voice. There's a ton of videos on YouTube of them covering Barracuda from Heart. And watching them play it last night, fuck, does she hit those notes like Ann Wilson. Like that's the kind of voice that she has, this kind of low, sultry, soul-filled rock and roll voice. But then she can hit those high notes as well. I was really impressed with them last night. And they had a lot of stage presence and a lot of poise up on that stage in front of a crowd that wasn't necessarily there to see them. They were there to see Slash last night, a sold out crowd of Bostonians, and you know how we can be. And they really held their own. And she even said in the interview, you know, I said, do you kind of have goals? And she was like, it would have been a goal to go out on tour with Evanescence and Hailstorm, since Lizzie Hale played such an integral part in the band forming and getting all four members connected. And she's like, but we already did that because they opened up the first leg of the Hailstorm and Evanescence tour. And then Lil Azar took over the second half, and that was the date that was here at the DCU Center. So it was cool to see him up there and just to hear her talk about this love of the genre and, you know, the concept that rock is dead and what an insane notion that is, because there are just so many young people that are growing up inspired by the music that their parents or their older brothers and sisters have played for them, and then wanting to take that music and turn it into something that's theirs. And it's happening more and more all the time that you see these. Ellen just had a kid on last week from England that was 6, and he was playing Slipknot online, got millions of views. She flew him from England, and he's like dressed up in full Slipknot gear, and the kid's like 6 years old, and he can play the shit out of a set of drums. So it's pretty cool. Haven't been on in a bit. Steven says, welcome home to your husband. Thank him for his service. Totally will do that, Steven. Thank you. And so it was just really cool to hear this next generation of rock bands, which is, like I say all the time here in the podcast, I love being able to keep you in touch with artists that you already love, but being able to introduce you to new artists is part of this that I also really love and enjoy, because we get to kind of get to know these bands at the beginning, and to be able to watch them grow and watch what they become and go along the journey with them is pretty spectacular. So I think this is going to be a band we're going to hear a lot about. They're writing their own music. They're obviously playing all the instruments. They're incredibly talented, and they're pretty badass. So happy International Women's Day, Plush. So if you haven't listened to episode 91 yet, you can. It's up there. And episode 92. Oh, shit. And fucking Wilson from Heart is on the podcast this week. Speaking of Barracuda, Speaking of a soul-filled voice, speaking of a legendary woman in rock and roll, Nancy Wilson was on the podcast on episode 63 talking about her solo album, and now Ann Wilson has a solo album that's coming out at the end of April, and she is my guest for episode 92 of the Mistress Carrie podcast, and she is so freaking cool. Total badass, as nice as you would expect her to be. And once again, just like Slash, just like so many of these other artists, they're doing a lot of these interviews by Zoom. And so sometimes artists have someone that jumps on the Zoom to kind of make the connection. I'm just sitting there in the Zoom meeting, and all of a sudden, bloop, there's Ann fucking Wilson on the screen. And I kind of screamed a little bit, and you'll hear at the very beginning of the episode that I think she was a little bit taken aback by my enthusiasm, like her sister was. And so we talked about her upcoming solo album. We talked about the early days. I asked her a few things that Nancy had told me in her interview about growing up, the influence of the Beatles on them when they were kids, about when she really fully discovered her own voice. And then I also asked her, because I asked Nancy kind of how she writes songs on the guitar. And so I asked Ann the same thing about lyric writing. And so she kind of described her process for me. We talked about marriage a little bit. We talked about songwriting a little bit. She is another artist. It comes up all the time if you listen to the podcast. She's another artist that worked on her album in Nashville. So we talked about that. Yeah. Ann fucking Wilson. Boom! On the podcast this week. Super excited. Yes, I fangirled out. Ryan says Ann Wilson is my favorite rock singer. Did you plan that? Ann Wilson on International Women's Day? Not necessarily, but it didn't go unnoticed that last week's episode is a brand new female artist or group that has worked a heart song into their set, and they're out on tour right now. And then one of the artists that inspired them, and I said this to Ann Wilson at the beginning of the episode, you know, just because I'm not a musician doesn't mean that artists like Ann Wilson didn't help open doors for me, because the Wilson sisters were so well respected. Jerry Cantrell talked about it on the podcast, about how Seattle kind of claimed them as their own. And if it wasn't for artists like Joan Jett, like the Wilson sisters, that held their own, that weren't just there to be pretty faces, but were there to write music and to play it and to not take anyone's shit, they helped to open the door for women in rock and roll like me to be able to go into that rock station and get behind the microphone and to be able to have a valued opinion about the music. The Wilson sisters helped to usher in, so many women's careers in rock and roll, and not necessarily just the bands, but also the techs, the lighting designers, the tour managers, the sound technicians, the recording engineers, the bus drivers. There are so many jobs that help to make the music we love and to make the tours happen that we go to see. And more of these jobs, it's being shown that women can do these jobs not just effectively, but excel at them and to bring something new to the job, to bring a fresh perspective. And, when you dig the archaeological dig of rock and roll, you find women. I mean, you go all the way back. You go to the Tina Turners, you go to the Ella Fitzgeralds, you go to the Aretha Franklins, who you may not think are rock and roll, but back in the day, they were busting down doors for generations of women. The Joplins, there's just the Mamas and the Papas, like all of these artists. And Ann Wilson is there. She is an incredibly important woman in rock and roll. And super excited that she's on the podcast this week. I found her to be incredibly humble And she is also as kind of ethereal as you would expect her to be. I asked her the same question I asked Nancy about what her perspective was playing at the Kennedy Center Honors and that iconic version of Stairway to Heaven that seems to constantly make its way around the internet that made Robert Plant cry. And we actually talked about that in the episode. To hear her rave about her new band was kind of interesting because she was talking about what a special group of musicians. Kenny Wayne Shepherd makes an appearance on this solo record that she's got coming out. And I was like, wow, she's really raving on this band like she's never been in a hugely successful band before. And so this episode of the podcast, episode 92, comes out at midnight tonight. Yeah, Mike, exactly. Producer Mike says Barracuda is such a metal riff. It 100% is. And Nancy Wilson on episode 63 talked about how she views the acoustic guitar as more of like a percussive instrument, the way that she plays it. Whereas the electric guitar, Nancy described as kind of a phallic experience for her. And, really being able to kind of play it in a different way. And she finds it to be kind of sexual in a way, which, let's be honest, any guy we've ever seen play the electric guitar, it's just a big penis with strings, seriously. So really excited about this episode. She talked a lot about taking care of her voice as well. And I thought it was really interesting. If you go back and listen to say the Buck Cherry, Josh Todd episode of the podcast that was, I think, within the first 20 episodes in the early days of the pandemic, Josh is one of those singers that really, really, really takes care of his voice, is really careful about what he drinks, what he eats, how he warms it up. In that episode, he talked about kind of studying old videotapes of Steve Perry from Journey and watching kind of how he used his voice on stage. And when I asked Ann Wilson about her regimen, her answer was kind of interesting because it wasn't just all what you eat and drink and how you warm it up. She talked about something a little bit more soulful in there as well. Let's see. Oh my God, Ryan, you're not new anymore. Knock it off. You're old school now. All penises come with strings attached, says Brito. Good night, Elsa. Thanks for hanging out with us. Ann and Nancy aren't touring together though, right? No, they have their own kind of solo albums. And that was one of the things that I made sure I asked Ann about was why, when you are in a highly successful band like Heart, when you're, say, somebody like Eddie Vedder, you're in Pearl Jam. Why do you need to do anything else? What does a solo album, what does collaborating with new artists bring to you as an artist? And how does it affect the band that you're known for? And Anne gave me a great answer on that as well. So you'll be able to hear all of the answers coming up at midnight. Great. I'll never look at a guitar the same way again. Thanks, Carrie. Mark, don't tell me you never watched a guitar player and just thought that they were just playing with their penis outside their pants. Seriously. I watched Slash play and shred, face melting shredding for over 2 hours last night. Come on. It's a penis. Speaking of amazing cover songs, Slash played a couple great ones last night. He did an Elton John cover, which I thought was great. And then he also played Always on the Run, which he co-wrote with Lenny Kravitz. And they played that song last night, which I thought was fantastic. So if you get a chance to go and see Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators on another show on this tour, there were some really good cover songs that were worked into the set as well. Why is it different when a girl tries to have sex with it? Well, Anne kind of talked about it. I mean, not Anne, Nancy kind of talked about it on her episode of the podcast. Just about some of the poses that she does and some of the ways that she stands with the guitar, and how it means different things for a woman to do that than a man. So you'll have to go back and listen to Nancy Wilson's episode if you haven't heard it. Lou says Always on the Run was killer. I absolutely thought so. Saw them at Great Woods in 2019 on the Love Live tour. Grace Slick, another perfect example, Stephen, of just amazing female artists that really kind of knocked doors down for generations of female artists. I mean, Lita Ford would not have been able to do what she did if it wasn't for, Debbie Harry and Joan Jett and the Runaways and all of these other female artists. And there's just so many of them now. And to be able to see, remember back when they did the Lilith tour or the Lilith Fair? Like, it was such a novelty that they could fill a tour with just female artists. And now there are too many female artists. You can't put them all on a tour. It's pretty awesome. Let's see. Nancy is an awesome guitarist. Mickey, she absolutely is. And not on a scale of like best female guitar players. Like, Nancy Wilson is up there with the greatest guitar players ever. And it's just because she fucking plays the guitar really well. And, like I said, I asked Ann Wilson about, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because Jerry Cantrell talked about it in his episode about how honored he was as a fellow Seattle musician being asked to take part in Heart's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I also thought that her answer about what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame means and what induction means and what the nomination process is like, I thought it was incredibly interesting and insightful. I don't want to give too much away, but we'll talk about it next week. But she is just everything I hoped she would be and more. So I can't wait for you to hear it. This is not one of the longer episodes of the podcast. Like I said, sometimes I'm not going to get hours with these artists. I just want to take the time I can get from them. I'm taking it. Ann fucking Wilson is on the podcast this week. Super excited. And when you get the Mistress Carrie podcast, you also get the sit reps, which you get every weekday. And it's everything you need to know in music, entertainment, headlines, updates, rock news, all of it. And it uploads first thing in the morning every Monday through Friday, so you can get caught up with everything that's going on and then get about your day. And there's always a lot going on, especially with all the tours that are getting announced, all the shows that are happening, the albums that are coming out. There's just so much going on, and you can keep track of all of it on the sit rep. So here's just a few of the places you can listen to the Mistress Carrie podcast if you haven't already subscribed. It's basically just everywhere. If you listen to podcasts on your favorite app, search the Mistress Carrie podcast. As long as you see this artwork right here, you know you're in the right spot. You can also just listen to all of them right up at mistresscarrie.com. The embedded players are there. It's embedded on the Pike FM website. If you go to pikefm.com, go to the Mistress Carrie page, the podcast is embedded there too. So it's basically everywhere, making it really easy for you to listen to it. And we are still holding strong at 130 countries. Canada is still far and away the number 2 country listening to the Mistress Carrie podcast. And once again, sending love to the people of Ukraine. It has been a horrific week in the news. The UN says over 2 million people have evacuated Ukraine since Putin invaded a week ago. And the idea that 2 million people are running for their lives, and that talking about women, that women are doing it alone, and they're doing it with the elderly, and they're doing it with children. They're banding together because, women have a hard enough time functioning in society no matter what the country, right? We talk about violence against women here in the United States, of rape and assault and spousal abuse. Imagine you're the mother of young children and your husband or the father of the kids isn't allowed to evacuate with you because if you're between the ages of, I believe, 18 and 60, you have to stay in Ukraine and fight. And you're going to a foreign country where you may or may not speak the language. You're literally carrying what's on your back. that's a dangerous proposition. Women are banding together with their kids together and their extended families together and traveling together for safety purposes. And they're trusting the people in Romania and, in Germany and Moldova and all of these countries that are welcoming these refugees, just to get into somebody's car, to stay in their house for the night. There's a lot of reports that Russian troops are sexually assaulting women in Ukraine that aren't able to escape. And then there's a lot of women that are just marrying their now husbands, and they're going, you know what? Fuck this. I'm putting on a uniform, grabbing a gun and fighting myself. And it's the news has been pretty heavy. And so the entire community here in the War Room, we have always been about banding together and trying to help each other through the toughest of times. And that's what we've done the last couple of years. And we've gone from trying to survive a pandemic to trying to understand what is happening in the world. Go back and listen to the Leslie Mandoki episode of the podcast and hear him talk about escaping the Iron Curtain as a 16-year-old. Listen to what he said about the importance of freedom and how important it is to protect it, how important it is to protect the press. If anyone understands from a personal perspective what's going on in the world right now, it's Leslie Mandoki, who was just on the podcast not even 2 months ago. And when he was talking about that and talking about how you don't just get to pass freedom easily, that it's something that has to be nurtured and maintained and protected and passed as this precious gift to the next generation, and to make sure that they don't take that for granted and that they understand how fragile it is. With everything going on in the news, if you go back and listen to the Leslie Mandoki episode, it's different now. It really is. And he's somebody that, I think I want to call back and have on the podcast again, simply to talk about what's going on in the news. I wanted to talk to you guys about it because of something that I did this week. So right before my husband got home last week, I went to the Charlestown Navy Yard and I went to the amazing facility at the home base program. And if you're not familiar with the home base program, it is the partnership between the Red Sox Foundation and Mass General Brigham. And it is an organization, a nonprofit that really started out of the World Series champion Boston Red Sox going and visiting Walter Reed after they won the World Series in 2004. They were supposed to go there for like an hour, visit our injured troops with the World Series trophy, and the team spent the entire day, and they all left there going, we need to do something. And so the original mission statement of the home base program was to treat post 9/11 veterans and to treat the invisible wounds of war, meaning traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress. The organization has been so successful in its 12 plus years in existence that they are now open to treating all veterans with the invisible wounds of war. And that includes all veterans' families as well. So the spouses, the partners, and also the children of veterans, who are most of the time the ones that are most personally affected by what's going on with the veteran. So I had a chance to go there, and their facility is amazing. I learned about a lot of the new initiatives and programs that they have put together. I ran the marathon in 2019 to raise money. So all of the money from my marathon run, which was over $17,000, went to the home base program. But they also have a podcast called Home Base Nation, and they asked me to come and do an interview. And so I recorded an episode that's going to be out in the next few weeks. But I sat down. This picture right here is me with General Jack Hammond, who's the executive director of the home base program. But I met General Hammond because he was the commanding general in Kabul, Afghanistan, when I was there in 2011. So General Hammond and I go way back. And I was involved with the home base program before I went to Afghanistan. Then I came home after meeting General Hammond. And then when he retired from the military, he started working at the home base program himself. And so we have continued working together. He's an amazing guy. And so he and I were doing the podcast episode together. And we started talking about Ukraine. And so they opted to isolate that 15-minute segment out of that interview and put it up immediately because the news of what's going on in Ukraine is changing by the day. And so if you go to my blog at mistresscarrie.com, the short part of our conversation that talked about what's happening in Ukraine and how that is affecting our veterans here at home, and how it's also affecting the loved ones of those veterans. And on a more broad sense, how this could affect the population at large. Because if you think about it, every conflict and war that we have gone through, everything from Pearl Harbor and D-Day to Vietnam, to the first Gulf War, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, everything we saw on 9/11. I think 9/11 is the first example of Americans being exposed to that kind of violence in real time. What's happening in Ukraine right now is happening live, and it's not happening through reporters. It's happening by people with smartphones on TikTok that are there. Ukrainian people, people that are going there to fight, people that are running for their lives with their kids. The footage is raw and it's high definition and it is everywhere. That kind of exposure to what would normally be an experience that only our military would have, that only our first responders would be exposed to, and what that is going to do to the population at large is what we were talking about. So this part of the interview is available in my blog right now. The full interview is going to be out in a couple of weeks, and I'll make sure that I let you know when the full episode is up. You will notice something really funny. So obviously when I get invited to be on other people's shows, sometimes I do it virtually, but when I get a chance to go and sit down in their studios and to sit down and record, I wanted to bring them some stuff. Well, I brought them Cocktails in the War Room t-shirts and, mouse pads and pens and stickers and all kinds of stuff that you can get in the store at mistresscarrie.com. Now, I told you that General Hammond, the executive director of the home base program, was the commanding general when I was in Afghanistan. You guys know what it says on the back of the Cocktails in the War Room shirts now, right? All the blueberry cobbler jokes that we've made. General Hammond was the commander on the base. I brought him a Cocktails in the War Room shirt, and he looked at it and he was like, you know what? I really love this logo, the hand grenade and the martini glass. I love it. He turned the shirt around and just started laughing. The idea that the general from Afghanistan, who was in charge of filling out all of the paperwork when that whole blueberry cobbler thing actually happened on base in Afghanistan, has now got one of the shirts that he can wear at the supermarket. Oh my God. I laughed all freaking day at the idea of it. Is he the one that you high-fived and said, nice jet? No, Melissa, the high five happened in Iraq in 2006. General Hammond was in charge of what they called the Ring of Steel, which was all of the bases that surrounded the Metro Kabul. So when I was in Afghanistan in 2011, the 181st Infantry had been there for that year, and then they were replaced by the 182nd Infantry. It was the largest deployment of troops from Massachusetts since World War II. So there were Massachusetts troops everywhere, and the commanding general was General Hammond. And so no, he was not the high five. That was in 2006. Exactly, Bish. It was a full circle moment. And it was one of those things where I didn't say anything and I just let him look at the shirt, and then he looked at the back, because I don't know. He knew that I sold the original War Room shirts for charity. I don't know if he was aware at what I had put on the back of the shirt after that. And the look on his face was everything I hoped it would be and more. So if this part of the episode is only like 15 minutes long, and it's up in my blog right now, but it's a really interesting podcast because they're talking about veteran topics, and a lot of the times they're talking to other veterans as well. So if you yourself are a veteran or you're the loved one of a veteran, you should check out Home Base Nation. They do their podcast a little bit differently. They do it in seasons. And so they're getting ready to start a new season of the podcast. And that's why they wanted to release this little bit of the episode about Ukraine, because they didn't want to wait for a few weeks and then have it not make sense, because literally what's happening in Ukraine is changing by the day. So I just wanted to, because they're a healthcare facility, obviously masks were required, and the facility is just spectacular. There are so many veterans that are working there now, that are helping fellow veterans. And what you see behind me in this photo right here is this display that they have in one of the hallways. You might not be able to see it very well. Let me see if I can blow the picture up a little bit so you guys can. This is a form of therapy that they do with veterans. Let me blow it up a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. See that they're masks. So what they ask the veterans to do is they ask the veteran to decorate the outside of the mask with what they show the world, to paint it, to whatever, but to show the part of themselves that everyone sees. And then what they ask is to decorate the inside of the mask about how they see themselves. And so these plexi boxes that are in this photo, the masks, you can spin them around so that not only can you see the outside of the mask, that is the part that the veteran wants to show you, but then you can spin it around. And what they do is they use this art project as a way to start conversation. Some of these masks are decorated very simply, and others have amazing, intricate detail, but it starts a dialogue, whether it be with the veteran and a healthcare worker, or a veteran and a loved one, a spouse, a child, to be able to kind of create a bridge of conversation and understanding. And it's a really powerful art display, and it's right there in one of the hallways. And I thought it was really cool. Good night, Jeff. Thanks for hanging out with us. So I wanted to show you guys that, and to really encourage you to go and check out that episode of the podcast. So that's why I started talking about Ukraine, because I really wanted you guys to know that this episode is up there as well. So, all right, let's talk about some of the headlines that are going on, because there's a ton of stuff going on. Just announced Alice in Chains, Breaking Benjamin, and Bush are playing the Xfinity Center together. They're going out on tour. National tour in the fall. They're going to be at the Xfinity Center on October 8th. Tickets go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. The entire tour goes on sale this Friday. So depending on where you're watching the War Room from, they're going to come to a city near you, and all of the tickets go on sale this Friday. It was also announced yesterday, 100 FM The Pike presents Tesla at Indian Ranch on July 31st. Those tickets go on sale this Saturday, and details on both of these shows are up on the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. The Offspring are also headed to the House of Blues in Boston on the Let the Bad Times Roll tour on May 15th. Those tickets are on sale right now. Korn, Chevelle, Code Orange are at the Dunkin' Donuts Center coming up really quickly next week, March 16th at the SNHU Arena. They're there on the 19th. Tickets for both shows are on sale right now. Judas Priest has slipped out of the top 5 in voting for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on the fan vote. So you got to go to the Rock Hall website, get your fan vote in there. Judas Priest needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, A. B, they're back out on the road. They'll be at Mohegan on April 2nd, the Songus on April 4th. Green Day, 21 Pilots, Bring Me the Horizon. They just are the start of artists that have canceled shows in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Just today, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, and McDonald's have all announced that they are going to stop doing business, albeit temporarily. They're putting on hold. They're closing all the McDonald's locations. They're closing all the Starbucks locations. And Coca-Cola, who's been taking a lot of crap in the press for continuing to do business in Russia, announced today that they are supporting McDonald's, who is a Coke company, serving Coca-Cola products, and Starbucks, and they are also going to stop doing business in Russia as well. So a lot of bands, Slipknot announced that they are canceling the Knotfest Roadshow in Russia and in Ukraine. So there's a lot of stuff going on. These bands, these international tours, they've been waiting to get back out on the road for a couple of years now. They finally get these international tours going, and then everything is going on, and all of the bands are like, we stand with the people of Ukraine, and we're not, obviously they can't go to Ukraine, but they're also opting to not go to Russia as well, which is a pretty powerful statement. The new album from Ghost is called Impera. It is out on Friday. If you are a NASCAR fan, watch the race this weekend. Ghost is sponsoring a car in the race this weekend, which is pretty awesome. The new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Unlimited Love, comes out on April 1st. The new Shinedown, Planet Zero, comes out on April 22nd. The new Hailstorm, Back from the Dead, is out on May 6th. Tons of amazing new rock and roll is coming out. This is going to be one of those years that we look back at 20 years from now and go, holy shit, how much amazing music came out that year. Speaking of the Knotfest Roadshow, it's going to be at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence on May 21st and May 22nd at the SNHU Arena in Manchester. And Breaking Benjamin, before they go out on the road with Alice in Chains and Bush, is out on the road with Seether and Starset, and that tour is hitting the SNHU Arena in Manchester on April 22nd. And there's your first mistake there. Those tickets are on sale. So, social. Cheers to mistakes. Pussifer is going to be at the House of Blues on June 28th. Jelly Roll will be at the Palladium on April 1st. There's so much going on. Dropkicks, they got their show kicking off St. Patrick's Day at the House of Blues, which they're going to live stream on St. Patrick's Day starting at 9 p.m. on their Facebook and YouTube, I believe. They'll also be at the House of Blues on the 18th and 19th. Last night, going into the House of Blues, masks were not required and vaccination was not required. So just another reminder, it depends on where you're going. It depends on the venue, and it also depends on the artist. They still have the right to ask that masks and vaccination cards be required. It was very strange to be at a show and have the crowd not be wearing masks. Some people were. A lot of the staff of the House of Blues were. A lot of the touring staff were as well, because they're just dealing with so many people in the general public, more so than most of us, that they're still being extremely cautious, which is smart. But it was weird being at a show where people weren't wearing masks last night. Royal Blood's going to be at the House of Blues on May 24th, and that massive Ringo Starr and his all-star band tour is going to be spending a ton of time in New England with shows in Boston, Worcester, Guilford, New Hampshire, Providence, Rhode Island, and I believe they're also playing out in Western Mass in Lenox as well at Tanglewood. Ooh, very fancy. So he's going to be around a lot. Papa Roach, Ego Trip is the name of the new album. The Kill the Noise tour is rolling into Mohegan on March 24th, so it's coming up fast. The tour just kicked off, and Bad Wolves, of course, finally able to get out on the road with DL, their new lead singer. The new album out on April 8th. Mammoth, WVH, and Dirty Honey are going to be at Big Night Live coming up at the end of this month. And not only is Big Night Live one of the new venues, but also there's another new venue that's opening up on Lansdowne Street, the MGM Theater at Fenway, which is being built in that back parking lot behind center field where all the satellite trucks used to be at the end of Lansdowne Street. That's going to open this fall, which is totally crazy. Speaking of Alice in Chains and Jerry Cantrell and solo albums, Jerry Cantrell is going to be at Big Night Live coming up April 9th. Turnstile will be at the Palladium on May 21st. And Tanglewood not only is going to be welcoming Ringo Starr and his all-star band, but also the Black Crowes. And those tickets go on sale Thursday. So don't forget that. ZZ Top also announced they're going to be at the Leaderbank Pavilion on July 22nd. ZZ Top getting ready to release a live album that is going to feature the late, great Dusty Hill. Blondie and The Damned are going to be at the Leaderbank Pavilion on August 14th. And I also want to remind you about Record Store Day that's coming out next month, April 23rd. It's a great opportunity for you to go and support a locally owned brick and mortar independent record store. And a ton of artists are going to be releasing exclusive vinyl. Just go to the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. There's a link. You can see the whole list. And the Live Nation Lawn Pass is still for sale right now. In the Xfinity Center in Mansfield, Massachusetts, in the Xfinity Theater in Hartford, Connecticut are two of the 30 venues that qualify for the Lawn Pass, which basically you pay $199 and all of the eligible shows, you have a ticket to go to all of those shows, which is totally getting your money's worth because the list of shows that you can go and see with the Lawn Pass is pretty long. So I thought that was very cool. Also want to remind you about the big gig. We talked about it a little bit coming up on April 30th at the DCU Center. Godsmack headlining along with 3 Days Grace, Black Veil Brides, Wage War, and Lilith Czar. And Mike Shue and I are going to be there to host it. We're finally going to be able to kind of celebrate the 50 years of WAAF and kind of be able to publicly mourn the loss of WAAF after 2 years because of COVID. So that's coming up at the end of April. And then also this got announced last week, the 4th annual 100 FM The Pike Hair Fest is happening July 30th at Indian Ranch. So that weekend is going to be crazy. The Hair Fest on the 30th, Tesla on the 31st. Mike Shue, Chuck Perks, and I will be there for that. That is a whole day's worth of concert. So it's 5 tribute bands. People come in spandex, wearing mullet wigs. It's just a blast. It's so much fun. We had a great time last year. The Hair Fest, this is the 4th annual, and it's always a good time. So, all right, mail call. Got a little package in the mail today. I got some Pez. And something came in here, and originally I thought if it was for Wednesday, but now I don't think it was. So I got Care Bears Pez, which is purple, by the way, which is amazing because I do not have that one. Got some Easter Pez, which I don't believe I have that chickie. And they usually are good with coming out with a bunch of different bunnies, and I have a bunch of bunnies, but I don't have that one too. So I got some Pez in the mail. There was no card inside. Oh, it came from Monica. Thanks, Monica. And then it also came with this, which is this plush toy that's like got like beads on the bottom so that it stands up straight. And originally I thought this was a toy for Wednesday, but it's not because she would totally eat the beads at the bottom. So this isn't a pet toy. This is a mom toy that's going in the cabinet with all of the Pez dispensers. But I thought that was really cool too. And I actually have this heart Pez dispenser that this plush thing is made out of. So I'm going to have to take another updated photo of the Pez collection because thanks to you guys, the Pez is growing. Let's see. There's no lawn at Great Woods anymore. Well, it's you know what it is. It's the GA area. They call it the lawn, even though it's not grass, because that's why we can't have nice things. People were ripping up the sod and throwing it everywhere, a la Green Day, Woodstock 94. I love them, Monica. Thank you. And I know, I can't believe the anniversary of the War Room is next Monday. It's like, phew. Does anyone else see an upside down penis? Mickey wants to know. I don't know what you're talking about, Mickey. Upside down penis. You and Wednesday can share that, says Brett. Yeah, exactly. Kind of looks like a penis, Pez. Donna. Sir, you have to wear pants in here. This is bullshit. I got to take a Pez. I'll be back, says Thomas. The sections on the end. Gotcha. Yeah. But so, yeah, it is still like there's that concrete like walkway. And then there's a row of seats, and then there's general admission up where the vendors are. But all of these different outdoor sheds have, general admission areas, and that's where the lawn pass will get you, is into the GA section. So, let's see. I just got the Grogu Baby Yoda Pez, says Annette. I have that. It's so cute. Everything looks like a penis, says Mark. Exactly. Carrie is so good. She doesn't give blue balls. She gives purple balls. Really? I'm in the no pants club tonight, says Jonathan. Yeah. I'm wearing pants tonight. Just want everybody to know that. Okay. Let's see. Want to remind you guys, speaking of Record Store Day, that Worcester and Northampton are lucky enough to have a brick and mortar record store like Joe's Albums, who always has like amazing vinyl, and they have turntables and all the hi-fi equipment, all of that stuff. And they also have Mistress Carrie merchandise in stock at the store, so you can just go straight there and buy it. And I wanted to remind you that obviously all the merch is in the website, including the new vinyl decals and the new acrylic pins that you can get in the store. And I was emailing with T-Shirt Brian today. So new things are coming. If you're celebrating your birthday today, you share it with Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. You share it with Clive Burr, who tragically passed away some years back, but was the drummer from Iron Maiden. And also Gary Newman, all born on this date in history. So if today's your birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy unbirthday, Keith. Good night, Monica. Up early. Good night. Get some sleep. Also want to welcome Denise. She is the newest holder of a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. I want to put a plug in for the Backstage Pass. Exclusive live stream every month, which we got to get on the books for March. Also, you can submit podcast interview questions. You get travel blog updates. You also get access to a lot of exclusive ticket giveaways. Up for grabs if you have a Backstage Pass. Tickets to see Pussifer, Breaking Benjamin, Royal Blood, the Knotfest Roadshow, and Korn. And if you get a Backstage Pass, which way am I going? Here, right here. The next 5 people to get Backstage Passes automatically get a pair of Korn tickets to go and see them on May 16th in Providence at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Rhode Island. So if you don't have one, you can get it at mistresscarrie.com. Click the Patreon link or go to patreon.com/mistresscarrie. You also are going to get tipped off when different events get scheduled, because there's a lot that's coming up. Yes, the War Room is having its 2-year anniversary this week, but later this year, I got a big birthday coming. I'm thinking we might have to have a party. Early planning stages. Just wanted to put the bug out there. So lots going on. So if you don't have a Backstage Pass, you can get one online. And just a reminder, here's all the handles of where you can find me online. So you said put in a plug. Really? Now you sound like my husband. Perverts. You're all perverts. Be ashamed of yourselves. Let's see. Korn is March 16th. Isn't that what I said? I hate it when I make mistakes in the War Room. War Room road trip to the boat again. Look, the world is going to be a very different place come October when my birthday is here. And so who knows what we're going to be able to pull off. My birthday is the first day of October. Full send for the birthday, producer Mike says. We might have to do something really cool. So we'll see. What day of the week does it fall on? Does anybody know off the top of their head? Hold on. Let me bring up the calendar while we're sitting here in the war room. April, May, June, October. Oh, shit. My birthday falls on a Saturday. This could be bad. This could be very, very, very bad. All right. I got to get cracking now. Let's see. Mine is October 3rd, says Melissa. Mike says his is October 3rd. Full Fernandez for the birthday girl. So Fernandez was actually here when we had friends and family over to welcome my husband home. And it was very cool to be able to hang out with Fernandez. We went full Fernandez because it wasn't just Fernandez. It was Mr. and Mrs. Fernandez that were here, which was awesome. Weekend birthday bender, says Donna. I know. Walter, get the 100-ounce birthday mug. David, you are totally right. And straw. Carol wants to know if you got my package. Carol, I didn't. This was the only thing that came from Monica, and it was the only thing that was in the mail today. So, not sure what's going on. But I went there today. This is all that was there. It was my Pez from Monica. Let's see. Shannon says my oldest is on the 6th. Let's paint the town purple, blueberry vodka, and Rippets for the drink of choice that evening. Mike, that's why you're the bestest war producer ever. Sorry, Combat Joe from Iraq. I love you too. The post office sucks lately, says Mark. Well, there's a lot going on in this world. Seriously. It's just a lot going on. Walter, get the birthday strippers. Pez and Plush Dick, says Christina. How many people have started a list of days that aren't my birthday trying to figure out when it is? Bag of Dicks gift bag, says Ralph. That would be fantastic. So we got to come up with I'm working on a plan. I got 6 months and counting. So I think we'll be okay, but we'll figure it out. All right, guys, that's it. So episode 92 of the Mistress Carrie podcast comes out at midnight, featuring the legend herself, the one and only Ann Wilson from Heart. So excited. Some great episodes coming up. Interviews I'm really excited for you guys to hear. So Carol says, I sent it 3 weeks ago. Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Carol. I'm really sorry. Somebody needs to record your birthday antics. I don't think that's necessary. We'll come up with something, though. We'll figure it out. All right, guys. I will see you guys next Tuesday, which will be the day after. So we'll celebrate our anniversary next week on the 15th. But Monday is our official anniversary of 2 years of Cocktails in the War Room. And I know I tell you guys every week, and I get all sappy every week when I say how much this has meant. But next week will be 175 episodes and 2 years, which is just insane. It's insane. And to see how much the world has changed, to go from the world locking down and all of that uncertainty to the world starting to open back up and the continued uncertainty with everything that's going on in Ukraine. I'm so grateful to have had this place that we can all go and kind of talk things out and figure it out together. So happy anniversary to you guys. 2 years and counting, and we'll celebrate next week. So good night, guys. Have a great night. Wednesday says good night, and happy pre-anniversary, and happy unbirthday, Keith, and welcome home, babe. Good night.